Is it clearly Alabama quarterback Bryce Young to the Panthers, or is there still a surprise possible with the number 1 pick?
Gary, the only thing I feel positive and safe saying about this draft is that Bryce Young is going to go number 1 overall. I know we had some crazy guy on Reddit try to throw all that off earlier this week with those Will Levis rumors and that, hey, look, Will's telling friends and family he's going number 1 overall. No, it is Bryce Young. After that, I think it's going to be total chaos, but I think you should feel pretty safe thinking that Bryce Young is going to be the first name called tonight.
So do you believe in Bryce Young as a franchise quarterback, or are you concerned about his size or anything else? Would you make him clearly the number 1 pick if you're in charge?
I wouldn't. Look, I think Bryce Young is the most talented quarterback in the draft. Now, that being said, I have a big issue with his height. And look, I'm a short guy myself, so I feel like I'm allowed to say this. And here is the thing, is that when you say, hey, look, a guy's too short to thrive in the NFL, you know what people do? They throw out Russell Wilson. They throw out Drew Brees. Guess what? Those guys weren't the number 1 overall pick in their draft. Drew Brees was a 2nd-round pick. Russell Wilson was a 3rd-round pick. These guys fell in part because of their height. And they didn't go to situations where you're expected to play from day 1 and turn the franchise around. That's when you're a 2nd-round pick, you can sit for a year. When you're Russell Wilson, he wasn't expected to start in year 1, but he won the job over Matt Flynn in 2012. But if you're Bryce Young, you have to go in there and start. And just that small body frame, when you start taking hits from defensive linemen and linebackers who weigh 100 pounds more than you, and that continually happens year over year over year, that adds up. I mean, we saw Andrew Luck retire because he was taking so many hits. So I would be a little worried about his size if I'm the Panthers. But as far as his football talent goes, it's A+.
The Titans have the 11th pick tonight, but there's some thought that they might move up to take a quarterback, perhaps move all the way up to number 3. Do you think that's a likely scenario, that the Titans move up in this draft to grab a quarterback?
Yeah, I would not be shocked at all. Look, we've heard the speculation that maybe they're looking to move on from Ryan Tannehill. We know they don't like Malik Willis. I mean, they benched the guy right before the biggest game in the season back in December and started Josh Dobbs. So, Willis is done with the franchise. So it's a matter of, is there someone we like in this draft, and can we get up there and get him? Because, yeah, you can say we'd love to get up number 3 and take maybe C.J. Stroud, but do you have the compensation to make that happen? The one thing about the Titans, though, is that we know they're not afraid to make a huge trade. We saw it in last year's draft when they sent A.J. Brown to the Eagles, and I don't think Titans fans were happy with that. But if they were to make a splash tonight and get up to number 3, and look, all the connections are there. Mike Vrabel, former Ohio State guy, he's tight with Ryan Day, that Ohio State coaching staff. I'm sure he's got the lowdown on C.J. Stroud. The Cardinals general manager, Monty Osborne, was in Tennessee for 3 years, so he's close there. So it would be pretty easy for them to work something out where the Titans end up at number 3 and taking C.J. Stroud. So I wouldn't be shocked at all if that happens tonight.
You mentioned C.J. Stroud. His S2 score has gotten a lot of attention over the past few days. Are you concerned at all about that?
You know what, Gary, I'm going to be honest. I didn't know what the S2 was until 3 years ago. So I am not going to be concerned about something that I had never heard of until, we've seen the scores coming out and guys that have graded well and graded not so well. And some guys that haven't graded well have ended up being successful NFL quarterbacks. So I don't think that a single written test is an end-all be-all where you have to say, all right, well, he flunked it, so there's no way he can be a good quarterback. I want to know what a guy can do on the field. That's really all that matters. And that test is supposedly supposed to test how fast you can process things. Well, guess what? C.J. Stroud processed the UGA defense pretty well in the semifinal game. He diced them up, even if he failed an S2 test. So, no, I would not put a lot of stock in that. It might be a mild concern, maybe if I was the Panthers number 1 overall, but lower in the draft, I'm not really concerned.
Staying on the subject of quarterbacks, Kentucky quarterback Will Levis is now, according to some, a projected top 5 pick. Some of the sports books actually have him as the 2nd quarterback to be taken in this draft. What's led to this late surge in his stock as we've gotten closer to this draft?
Yeah, it feels like a lot of it's a smokescreen. I mean, I just feel like people are blowing up Levis, and he's shooting up stock. His stock is shooting up, and everyone else's is falling down. I mean, we've seen C.J. Stroud fall down. Anthony Richardson tumbled just slightly. And the big winner here has been Will Levis. Maybe his agent, maybe his management team, whatever. They're doing a great job because all I've heard about the past week is how Will Levis is shooting up. And I will say the one thing that teams might like about him, though, is that he is he's the closest thing you have to a classic NFL quarterback. Kind of the perceived notion of a classic NFL quarterback. I don't know that style translates too well to how the game is being played today with guys like Lamar Jackson. It is a little surprising. I do not think he will be selected in the top 5. I would think I would be somewhat surprised if he's even in the top 10.
So there are 4 quarterbacks, you've named them all, who could go, say, in the top 12 or 15. It's Bryce Young, it's Anthony Richardson, it's Will Levis, and it's C.J. Stroud. If one of those guys drops out of the top 15, who is most likely to be that guy?
I would say Levis. I just think that C.J. Stroud is so talented that teams would be crazy. That Tennessee, worst case scenario, I think, would take Stroud at 11 if he fell into the lap. So I don't think he would fall out of the top 15. Bryce Young's not falling. He's going number 1 overall. And then Anthony Richardson, I just feel like he is such an athletic freak that a team would be willing to roll the dice on him and get him in there and see what he can do. And it does feel like Levis would be the guy to fall. He's going to go in the first round. We might even see Hendon Hooker go in the first round. We might see 5 quarterbacks go in the first round. Teams love drafting quarterbacks. So, even if he falls out of the top 15, I don't think it would be very far.
Are you a believer in Hendon Hooker?
I think he is probably the most underrated quarterback in this draft. I don't know that I would call myself a believer, but I would think about using a top 25 pick on him. I mean, what he did at Tennessee was pretty impressive before the torn ACL. Obviously, that's going to be a concern if you're an NFL general manager. Is if I draft him, is he even going to be ready to play in week 1? He's not going to be able to go through a lot of training camp because he's rehabbing. So definitely some injury concerns. But, man, I watched more Tennessee games I live in Nashville now.
Sure.
Tennessee was never really on my radar. But I watched more of them this year than I probably have in my whole entire life combined. And I was impressed with what I saw from Hendon Hooker.
Famously, the Packers would never use a first-round pick on weapons for Aaron Rodgers. Now Aaron Rodgers is in New York. Jordan Love is going to take over. Green Bay's got the 13th pick tonight. Do you think they use that pick to get somebody to theoretically make the transition to Jordan Love go more smoothly?
I mean, is this flipping the bird to Rodgers on his way out if you do this? You have him since 2008, he's your starting quarterback. You don't get him a single skill player in the first round throughout his entire career there. And then the second you kick him out the door, we're here talking about, hey, maybe the Packers will take a tight end. Maybe the Packers will take a wide receiver. I won't be surprised at all. They definitely need to add some weapons. Maybe they go with Michael Mayer. Maybe they take a tight end there. There's quite a few receivers, and they pick in a spot where that might end up being the first receiver off the board, whether it's JSN out of Ohio State, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison. They're just in a spot where you don't have to reach to take a receiver. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if they end up taking a receiver.
How do you think, moving away from the draft, the Jordan Love thing goes in Green Bay? The early returns when he did play weren't encouraging, but, he had an entire offseason to further develop. Would you bet on that working or not?
I think it could work. I think that, look, when Matt LaFleur is trying to run his offense, Aaron Rodgers just loves to go off script and kind of do whatever he wants, and I'm sure that was kind of frustrating to Matt LaFleur. Now he's going to have a guy in Jordan Love who's going to run the offense exactly how Matt LaFleur wants it run. And if I'm the Packers, I honestly don't think there's really any downside to the 2023 season. Scenario 1, Jordan Love is horrible. You go 2-15, maybe you get a top pick and you can get one of the top quarterbacks next year. Maybe you get Caleb Williams. Option 2, Jordan Love is intermediate, 7-10, 8-9. That's kind of what everyone expected in his first year as a starter, so I don't think the Packers really take any heat from that. Option 3, he's awesome. They go to the playoffs and no one remembers Aaron Rodgers. And obviously Packers fans would be completely on board with that. So I think that if you're the Packers, you're kind of okay with however the 2023 season plays out.
Last thing before I let you go, Aaron Rodgers was introduced officially by the Jets yesterday, had a press conference, and he was him. he was him. It seemed very intentional, calling all the reporters by their names, talking about how he can't wait to get to know them, talking about how he's looking forward to dealing with the quote-unquote New York media. What did you make of Aaron Rodgers' introductory press conference? And do you think at this age he can actually make the Jets a Super Bowl contender?
Well, I thought he was impressive in the press conference. Clearly, we heard the last month that, hey, will Aaron Rodgers be able to put up with the New York media? And, well, if the first press conference was any indication, the answer is yes. He was his smooth self, answered every question, gave a good answer for not taking Joe Namath's number, said, hey, look, he knew the history of the franchise. They haven't won a Super Bowl since Super Bowl III. He knows how long it's been. He wants to build a legacy there, and he knows he can do that with one Super Bowl win. And to your second question is, can he get them to that second Super Bowl win? I'm not sure, man. I just think the AFC is way too loaded. Rodgers is, I don't even think, a top 3 quarterback in the AFC. There are just too many teams to get through, and I think the Jets are good. I think the Jets will make the playoffs. But I do not think they will win the Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers.
That is John Breech, CBS Sports. Also on the Pick Six Pod, you can subscribe to that anywhere you subscribe to podcasts, including Apple and Spotify. NFL Draft tonight. He's on Twitter at John Breech. I appreciate your time, buddy. Thanks for being here.
Yep. Thanks for having me, Gary.
The Gary Parrish Show, live weekdays at 10 a.m. on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app.